which is scary as it is, it benefits them. Because as they learn how to bowl one-handed, as they grow in strength, and as they learn the technique and what they need to do, they end up progressing higher than they were before. Like I said, our numbers, both our congregational numbers and our financial numbers, they make sense. We can understand them. And when you add on kind of the economic world that we live in right now, that there are people who have or have currently lost their jobs or who have extra medical payments, where we are is completely understandable. And I certainly do not want to stand up here and make it sound like this congregation is not doing enough. You are. Holy Cross has proven itself faithful to God and faithful to the needs of this church time and time and time again. But these are the numbers. Myself and corporation and council feel that you need to know them. This congregation has asked. We want to know them. We have some hard bills to pay. We have some expenses to meet. But to put it in perspective, given the alternative to stay financially safe in our old building or leap ahead into where we feel that God is calling us, I don't think that we made the wrong decision. Yes, we have some practical challenges ahead, but we need to hold on to the truth and the trust and the hope of God's provisional leading for us, or providential leading for us. We read from Numbers this morning of Israel wandering through the desert. And they got in trouble yet again. Why? It's not because the wilderness was hard. It's not because it was a struggle at moments. They got into trouble because they began to forget the hope of God's providence, of God's caring, of God's leading. They began to say things like, "Did you take us into the desert just for us to die?" As if God would lead them out of Egypt and not care or provide for them along the way to the promised land. When we look too much at our inabilities to face whatever obstacles we face, it can be easy to think those things. It can be easy to look at our attendance numbers that aren't as big as they were before, or to look at our finances that aren't as large as they were before, or our bills left to pay, which are bigger than we would like, and we can say things like, "Did God lead us into this simply just to empty us out?" We have to, as a community of faith, we have to hold on to the reality that God will provide. We have to trust that. We have to have that hope. We sing to the Lord not simply because God has done marvelous things, but because we trust that God will continue to do marvelous things in the future. Now, I know that some people may think, now, don't get too enthusiastic, Kyle. We don't want people to feel like they don't need to do anything. You know what? We're intelligent people. I trust that everybody here understands the situation, and that as you continually hold our community in prayer, you will do what you feel God places on your heart to do. Obviously, one of the ways that God blesses our world, one of the ways that God blesses this church is through our hands. So I don't want to minimize that. But one of the most dangerous things for the church is a spirit of poverty, in which we think that whatever we have to face is simply too big and we just can't do it, and our resources are too small and we're just humble people and we just can't do it. The reality is that we are not alone. We are not cut off from the source of our life and our abundance. We are not merely left to ourselves. And on this Holy Cross Sunday, that is the message that I want everybody to leave with here today. We are placing our time capsule in after the service because we believe that God has a future for us. And if we believe that God has a future, and if we are continually open to God's leading, then God will bring about that promised future for us. Yes, let's be diligent, but let's also be prayerful. And more than that, let's be hopeful, placing all our hope in the presence of God. I end with a quote from George Mueller. I have dedicated my whole life cheerfully to the precious service of giving to the world and to the church a clear, distinct, and undeniable demonstration that it is a blessed thing to trust in and wait upon God. That God is now, as he ever was, the living God, the same as revealed in the Holy Scriptures, and that if we know and are reconciled to him through faith in our Lord Jesus Christ, and ask him in his name for that which is according to his mind, he will surely give it to us in God's own time. Let us remain hopeful for our future, and let us remain open to the challenge of the Spirit, to the presence of God's Spirit, but also to the blessings of God as they come pouring into our midst.